Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Real quick, does it bother you that I don't say Rise Up Red Sea when I host the show? We haven't talked about this.
No,
Rise Up Red Sea. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. You can follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Unfortunately, we have a little suspension. I don't know. It's like when your parents accuse you of doing something, you have no idea what happened. Maybe one of your siblings blamed it on you and you were a complete innocent bystander. We're trying to get that back up and running. Not exactly sure why our account's suspended for now, but you can be able to check out the podcast tweets, whether it be on Bo or my respective Twitters. And please go hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Things are growing pretty precipitously, and we're both very, very excited about it. Got a packed show today, actually. Maybe Steve Keim was right. We have visual representation of Zaven Collins on the field. We'll talk about that. Should Kyler Murray be starting during the first preseason game at all? Mike Clay gives out his grades from every position group for every NFL team. We talked about this last year. The Cardinals are in an interesting spot, and it just shows time and again how top-heavy this team is. And the first unofficial depth chart is out. Bo's going to give a little deeper dive, and I'm going to react to that. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. I've been on record for the last 18 months or so, almost 2 years now, saying that Steve Keim has acted as a top 10 GM in the NFL with the moves he made after drafting Kyler Murray. He came under fire from me and many others when he proclaimed Zaven Collins the starter months before the season starts. And then there was a video yesterday from the Arizona Cardinals Twitter account showing Zaven Collins playing, perfect defense on DeAndre Hopkins up the seam from the linebacker position, and Kyler Murray just dropping a dime to Nuke. And I showed it to Bo. Bo saw it. He's like, I tweeted out, that might be the best linebacker coverage we've seen since the start of the 2020 season.
Yeah, it gives you a little confidence in the move from
little
Steve
juice.
Keim. Yeah, forcing his first rounder into action, because you got to imagine Jordan Hicks was like 17 yards behind the play if he's in on that. And if it takes an elite wide receiver to beat out Zaven Collins, who was raved about in the pre-draft process about his coverage skills, then you'll take that. If he can just at least cover running backs and tight ends and maybe like wide receivers down the depth chart, you'll take that, because he was draped on DeAndre Hopkins. And you love it from all angles. One, the coverage from Zaven Collins. Sure, it would have been like the little cherry on top would have been if he could have knocked that down.
Yeah.
But the fact that D-Hop is able to haul that in, and the fact that Kyler Murray put it exactly the only place that DeAndre Hopkins could have caught the ball and out of the reach of the defender, it gets you a little giddy inside, especially with the fact that we've got football coming up in the next couple days.
Yeah, I think it was Cam Cox who came on here and said, at training camp there were times where Zaven and Isaiah Simmons played perfectly together on defense, and there were some where they were looking at each other with their hands raised in the air like, what the hell are we doing here? So any sort of positivity coming out of camp from the defensive side especially, and the young buck out of Tulsa is accepted and smiled upon. So that's great. And the video coverage was incredible. Like, I wish I could edit video like that. Like, you slow it down just a little. Unless DeAndre Hopkins is that slow, I don't think that's the case. And the haters will say, well, DeAndre Hopkins isn't fast, so obviously it'd be easy for a 6'4", 260-pound guy to keep up with him. I disagree. So that's fun.
An elite route runner. He's an elite route runner. He knows how to navigate in space and get that space.
And that's how you play in the league for 13 years, when you don't have to rely on your speed. You tell me that DeAndre Hopkins can't get to where he wants to go, and I'll call you a big fat liar. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Should Kyler Murray start in Friday's campaign, Bo? Couple different schools of thought here. We got some crap, which is great. Please, we love interacting with you. Leave comments during the YouTube premiere. Got some crap for kind of ripping Kyler a little bit about the pick that he threw on the hands of Darqueze Dennard when he threw an out route into double coverage during camp a couple days ago. I think 2 days ago. And this is what I have to say to that. If you can't do it against a third stringer who couldn't make a roster somewhere else, how are you going to do it against cornerback ones? I mean, obviously it's not the end of the world. That's not what we're saying here. But should Kyler Murray be starting during the first preseason game? Is he going to hand the ball off twice and then throw one pass and be out? If that's the case, cool. I mean, you don't want him to be playing a quarter, right? And he most likely won't be. Maybe a series or two.
Look, I mean, we saw a couple tweets from some good Arizona Cardinals reporters, Darren Urban. No doubt Kyler Murray will play some snaps on Friday, and that's what we're used to seeing. That's why this is the ultimate tease preseason. Even though there's one last game, it's like, okay, we get to see Kyler Murray, we get to see the first team offense. They'll go out there, and yeah, they'll have a cup of coffee, and then they'll walk off the field, or just a couple sips. But and then you're like, okay, let's take a look at who's behind these guys on the depth chart. I don't think that you said it right as far as Kyler Murray made a bad pass in a scrimmage. That's it. Like, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think that it's going to turn in. He's not going to have a case of the turnovers all of a sudden. A guy who's taking care of the football in his first 2 seasons relatively well, 12 picks in each season. So, it was a bad pass. We've seen, even pedestrian type cornerbacks be able to pick off balls, and passes like that are easy to pick off in the NFL. And it was just a bad pass. Look, I'm past it. I'm sure Kyler, hopefully he's got a goldfish memory. Thanks, Ted Lasso, for that analogy. But, I think that they're fine. But as far as the preseason, I was kind of curious how it was going to look with the one less game, because you'd see them kind of with the 4 games. It's like, okay, 1 too many. 3, of course, is the main dress rehearsal, and you've got like going into you play the first half in the second game. You come out in the third game of the locker room and try to make those adjustments, and then you're done. We'll see how it works now. Is it just going to be game 1 and game 2, and then game 3 are those fringe roster types trying to make the team? And we're going to get a heavy dose of Colt McCoy and Chris Trevler in game 3. I don't know how it's going to work, but first, out of the gates, we are going to get to see our franchise quarterback go back there and hopefully throw maybe 1-2 passes. I'm hoping, 3. Hopefully this first team offense, answers some questions just right out of the gates. And there's a good chance that they don't. But, preseason week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, you got your starters in there, at least Kyler Murray. It's exciting. State Farm Stadium, the Red Sea, it's going to be rocking.
Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Coming up next, the first unofficial depth chart is out. Couple surprises in there. Couple positives, couple head scratchers. And spoiler alert, Zaven Collins is listed as first on the depth chart, an inside linebacker in front of Jordan Hicks that everybody expected. Bo's going to break it down. I'll react next. Locked On Cardinals. First, betonline.ag. Telling you, fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball is this like the most fun time of year, Bo, for baseball fans, where things are kind of starting to round into form? You can put your shekels, as Bo would say, on a couple games. NFL obviously coming up, preseason coming up. Before you know it, we are 33 days away from kickoff. Week 1, Arizona Cardinals in Tennessee, in Nashville. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for your sporting needs, including NFL. The NBA seems to be starting up in like 10 minutes, which is actually 2 months. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Go to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using promo code LOCKEDON. Go to the website or use your mobile device. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using promo code LOCKEDON. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. Second segment, Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Apologies, we are unable to access our Locked On AZ Cards Twitter page for now. Hopefully in the next 24, 48 hours, we'll have it fixed and we'll be back up and running. Please go to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe. We premiere our videos at noon Pacific time every day. Good things are coming. Bo, our numbers are starting to jump. Bo got very excited this morning.
Yeah, I did. Just to see all the reaction and the comments and everybody talking about the red-white scrimmage and from yesterday's video was fantastic. And the daily comments that we're getting and interaction, unbelievable. We're grateful for everybody that tunes in, listens to what we have to say. This is if you have something, if you don't agree with us, we like that. We like it's a discussion. Like we're having it. We're everybody. Like we cover the team. We have our opinions. You watch your favorite team. You have your opinions as well, and they don't necessarily align, and that's great because you can have a discussion about this team, and we're all celebrating the game of football and the Arizona Cardinals. Real quick, did you see this yesterday? Our guy Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets, he thinks that the Arizona Cardinals could sleepwalk to 9 wins this year. This was what he said on Monday's edition. Almost everything could go wrong, and they could win 9 games. Paramount Sports is Lee Sterling, who nailed the Hall of Fame game. He said, hit the under hit. He said, take the Pittsburgh Steelers at -2.5. Pittsburgh covered easily. He thinks you could absolutely win some money off the Arizona Cardinals because what is it? Is it 8.5 or 8 at betonline.ag? Looks like it's a
8.5.
Good bet.
So it's crazy how everything went right last year and they only won 8 games. Every ball bounced their way last year. I mean, with the quarterbacks they played, with the lack of injury, aside from Chandler Jones, obviously, like the Cardinals could have. We've talked about this. That was the path to the Super Bowl that the 49ers took. Everything went right.
I don't know. I mean, look, if they had a competent place kicker, that'd be nice, right? I mean, they probably make the playoffs if Zane Gonzalez hits a couple key clutch kicks, he doesn't come up short on a 49-yarder, and he doesn't miss the kick in New England. I think that the Arizona Cardinals are, they get to where they wanted to go last year in the postseason. I don't know if they were fortunate as far as the quarterbacks that they faced throughout the season. As we mentioned, they faced 4 top 15 quarterbacks last season, which is not a lot. This year, they're going to face at least 10. So, including Russell Wilson twice, it's a murderer's row. But you know how football is. I mean, injuries are inevitable. That's kind of what happened last year, where you were facing some guys that were filling in for some injured signal callers. We'll see what happens this year. The Arizona Cardinals, regardless, they need to take care of business. I mean, they do pretty well against teams that they should beat. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, is 10-6-1 against teams that are 500 or below, but he's only like 3-11 or something against teams that are 500 or better. So he's going to have to take care of business against some teams that, if you want to play with the big boys, you got to take care of business. That's going to have to start to happen this season if you want to get to where you want to go.
First things first unofficial depth chart is out. Bo, surprises. Let's start with the 3rd round pick from last year's NFL draft.
Yeah, it was interesting that we were talking about yesterday how we were excited to see Josh Jones potentially vie for the starting right guard position, and that still might be something possibility. But if you look at the first unofficial depth chart, you'll see Josh Jones not anywhere in the mix as far as the right guard position. He's actually going to be in the right tackle position. He's depth there, and he's pretty far down the depth chart. He's second actually behind Kelvin Beachum. Your right guard, it's Justin Murray, Brian Winters, and Brandon Bowen is actually the 3rd player on the Cardinals depth chart on the offensive line. Max Garcia looks like he's locked up the backup center position. Your draft pick, Michael Manette from Penn State, is 3rd in behind Rodney Hudson. And then you've got Justin Pugh as far as your starting right guard. You've got DJ Humphries, of course, your starting left tackle. And then backing him up is Josh Miles. But other than that, not really any surprises on the offense. I mean, you look at your slot receiver, it's exciting to see Christian Kirk, who's going to get back to practice. The idea of him playing that position, where he's kind of been an outside receiver the first couple of years of his career. I think Christian Kirk, when the Arizona Cardinals drafted him in the 2nd round in the Texas A&M, a lot of us envisioned him as that speedy slot guy. Mm-hmm. And for him to finally get that opportunity, because we don't know what the hell's going on with Larry Fitzgerald, if he's coming back or if he's going to retire. I'm excited about Christian Kirk playing the slot. I think his skill set matches up very well for that position. AJ Green is your starting Z receiver, and DeAndre Hopkins is your other starting X receiver, your outside guys. And then the running backs, it's Chase Edmonds, James Conner, Jonathan Ward, Eno Benjamin, Ito Smith, Tavian Feaster. And then the quarterbacks, I don't think anybody's shocked to see Colt McCoy ahead of Chris Strebler backing up Kyler Murray right now. And that's just the offense.
We're going to get to Mike Clay's grades. He's a big fantasy guy. He does one of the best segments in fantasy football on Sundays is he's on ESPN and he does the best wide receiver 1, cornerback 1 matchups. And it's, it kind of makes you think, well, should I be starting this guy against Jalen Ramsey? I'm going to have to do that twice with DeAndre Hopkins this year. He has the running back room. And when you look at that, Bo, that's all they've done. That's the running back room that they said, you know what? We're full go ahead of the 2021 season. And it just, that almost worries me more now than the cornerback room, where you're going to have to rely on Kyler Murray to facilitate with his legs more than he probably wants to and more than you kind of want to see, right? I mean, that is a below average running back room. Regardless of what people think, like, sure, he's going to be Chase Edmonds going to be an RB1, but it's by default almost. And again, we haven't seen it yet. Sure, if he pops, absolutely. You want the dude to pop. He's a good kid. It's a great interview. Him and Kyler have a great relationship, on the field, off the field, but like you want to see it first. We haven't seen anything from anybody in the in this backfield. Chase Edmonds, James Conner last year, like we haven't seen anything since Le'Veon Bell left really from James Conner being a ball toting RB1.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make more sense when you see where Mike Clay rated it, but it's pretty on par with a lot of the other evaluations of the Arizona Cardinals roster going into the season, and there is a lot of doubt in the running back room from outsiders. Chase Edmonds has performed under Cliff Kingsbury in his role, where he's run close to 5 yards per carry, 4.8, and he's been very effective catching the ball out of the backfield, but he hasn't proven that he can be that bell cow, that he can be that 17 to 20 carry or just touch guy. And, I think the thing I like is that every year there are organizations that are tabbed as, this position group is no good, but it's because they're just unproven and then they explode. And I like that the Arizona Cardinals, they trust who their players are, who their personnel are, especially in the running back and the cornerback room. And there are heavy expectations, at least internally, for guys like Chase Edmonds, for guys like Byron Murphy at the cornerback spot. And they expect them to take a big leap and then hold down those positions, if not help those positions excel beyond what anybody believed they were capable of.
We're not asking for all pro running backs. We're asking for no regression from last year. That's it. So if Chase takes a little bit more and James Conner gives you 75% of what Kenyon Drake did, you'll take it. I mean, you need goal line scores, no third and goals from the 8. And I've talked about that a lot. Like, you would like to not have to throw on first and goal from the 3. That's the ideal situation. The closest play, the fastest way between A and B is a straight line. That's it. And James Conner can do that for you.
Sure.
So that's where we're at. I mean, we're not going to beat heads, and we'll get into the numbers here. Projections from Mike Clay, one of the smartest NFL minds in the game. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Subscribe on YouTube. We just hit the 400 mark in less than 2 months. We really appreciate everybody who's been watching. Tell your friends. It's only going to get better from here when there's actual football to talk about. Coming up next, Mike Clay under the microscope. The ratings for the Arizona Cardinals groups, offense and defense, and the final grade and where that ranks across the landscape of the NFL. Might surprise you. That's next, Locked On Cardinals. But first, what doesn't surprise you is the effective nature of Rock Auto and rockauto.com. It's raining outside, Bo. I don't want to go outside. And rockauto.com allows me to not have to. I still need tail lamps because I'm lazy. And I still need to buy the tool that you made fun of me for last time, because the tool is about 3 feet long, and that's Ford's way of getting you. And I'm not going to be gotten by Ford, so I go to rockauto.com, and I can buy all this stuff for myself. Family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. Saves you the trek to a chain storefront where you have to ask questions and search around and you don't know where anything is, like me. RockAuto.com, their prices are reliably low. You don't get upcharged because you're not a manufacturer, which is fantastic. Go to RockAuto.com. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. The Mike Clay projections for the 2021 NFL season for all 32 teams is a must look at, a must search for. He put it out, I think it was early last week, and the numbers aren't really going to change. So the numbers, I'm just going to show you the grid so you can look for it. You're not going to be able to see this really, but let's just talk about this quickly here, Bo.
Mm-hmm.
The Arizona Cardinals, these grades are pretty much school grades. They're school grades from 0 to 4.0. The Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray, and I'll spoiler alert this for you, have the 8th best quarterback room in the NFL. Okay? How are you feeling about that?
You have to feel that's pretty accurate, right? I mean,
actually 9th.
Yeah, we've been discussing all offseason long that we believe Kyler Murray, with the leap that he took in his second season with the 37 total touchdowns, 4,600 yards, that he's a top 10, if not fringe top 10 quarterback. And that's what this reflects. And if you look at the Rams just below that, accurate. Niners way below that, 1.8 at their quarterback position, very accurate. And then the Seahawks, of course, they're going to have their guy just ahead of the Arizona Cardinals quarterback and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. I think that Mike Clay, as far as how he grades the quarterback position, is accurate. So, and that's with Kyler Murray, if he is on par with his numbers last year, where I think you should see a little bit more of a jump. I mean, third season, he's comfortable in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I think you got to like his weapons. I think they're not as. I think that they're set up to Kyler Murray's skill set a little bit better, to where we can see, there's a very good opportunity for this offense to take a step in the right direction. But there are a couple other things, and we mentioned at the running back room, where it looks like Mike Clay, no confidence, but this is based off, previous data. They're at a 0.9.
Yeah, they're 26th in the NFL.
Yeah, 26th in the league. And as I said, it's going to take them, changing that narrative by performing right out of the gates. And there's going to be a lot of, it's going to be some pressure on Chase Edmonds at RB1 to take over, take the reins on something that he has previously not been able to kind of take over. So, that's going to be big. That's going to be, the positions where the Cardinals excel, Alex, and we know where there's some doubt, and they fall short, especially, as far as analytically, as far as those numbers.
Yeah. Wide receiver room, interesting, 2.9. They are ahead of both the Packers and the Browns, according to Mike Clay. So Devontae Adams is kind of in the same situation as DeAndre Hopkins, kind of on an island. When you add AJ Green and Rondo Moore, apparently they like that package more than Amari Rodgers, who the Packers drafted, who I thought would have been great for the Cardinals, even though they would have had to take him a little bit higher than people projected him out of Clemson. You got to be happy with the 2.9. So maybe we're not really seeing the forest through the trees with really how good DeAndre Hopkins is. Like, we know, but we see it every day. We talk about it every day. Like, 30 other teams wish they would have DeAndre Hopkins on their roster, and the Cardinals do. We're 31.
Once again, the only team that they trail in the division at the wide receiver position looks like it's the Seahawks. Yeah. Surprisingly, the Rams getting a 1.9. Mike Clay, not a big fan of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and their ability to get open. I don't know. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, most undervalued. They're the most undervalued 1-2 punch in the NFL, probably. Yeah, especially Robert Woods. Tight end. Story. Yeah. No surprise here. Max Williams did not pass. He did not pass go or collect $200. The Cardinals are at a 0.1 out of a possible 4.0 from the tight end position. We can move on from there.
That's the worst in the league, right?
It has to be. It has to be.
I don't see anybody below. I mean, the Jags have a 0.3. That's a group that has Tim Tebow playing in it, and they get more. They get more value than the
more run. And then you know what? We'll hit defense tomorrow because we're running out of time here. The offensive line are at a 2.5, respectable. I mean, that's a Rodney Hudson effect. I wonder what they were. I'm assuming they were at around a 2.0 last year. So you get a full half grade bump for having, a top 3 center in the NFL. So that's where you look like, man, they couldn't draft a running back in the 3rd round because they traded for Rodney Hudson. Yeah, maybe they technically overpaid for a guy that was going to be getting cut, but at least you're overpaying in draft capital and not actual cheese coming out of your salary cap, which is what would have had to have happened if the Cardinals would have landed him after his contract got voided from the Raiders.
And it's interesting, and I continue to just look at where the other teams are in the division, and this paradox continues where the Arizona Cardinals, our guy Jared even pointed it out. I think it was a tweet from Johnny Venerable about the Arizona Cardinals being the favorite to finish last in the division.
Yeah.
And they're plus 600 if you think that they're going to win the NFC West. And you look at these numbers and how they grade out against the teams in the NFC West, and they're only behind the Niners as far as offensive line in the NFC West. And you get that Trent Williams is an absolute beast, and you give him the edge over DJ Humphries, even though Trent Williams is a bigger injury risk, has proven to be the last
much
couple
older.
Seasons. Much older. How much better can he be? DJ Humphries, I think, has surrendered 5 sacks in the last 2 seasons. That's not too bad. It's where you look at, they signed Alex Mack. I'll take Rodney Hudson over Alex Mack at the center position. And then, I think maybe Mike McGlinchey gives them the edge on the offensive line. I just think, the Arizona Cardinals grade out pretty well, but then we continue to see everybody say that they won't put their name behind them. The Rams, a 2.4 on the offensive line. You've got the Seahawks are a 2.0, but the Arizona Cardinals are either second in most offensive positions, second or close to first, but nobody will bet on them. But is the head coach on here though? That's the biggest question too. I mean, I think that's where Cliff Kingsbury stacks up. If there's a grade, where does he stack up in the division? 4th.
I mean, unless it's least amount of carbs taken in.
That's true.
Gold medal, baby. Gold flipping medal. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. We'll hit the rest of Mike Clay's list tomorrow when Bo takes the reins. Thank you to everybody who listens. We will get our Twitter page hopefully back up by Friday. I mean, we're constantly working on it. We have no idea why it happened, but we'll get it back up. Until then, you can follow Bo at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. We'll be posting the podcast links on our respective pages for whoever hosts that day. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow if I can speak.